Hello. So if you're watching this video first, just know that it's part of a playlist. I recorded, I need to change the name. I'm going to go in the titles. So this is part two of the OnlyHueman intro video series. And the title is no longer good either. So now the title is going to be Alexander, from Alexander to Anrif. Okay. This video, unlike the last one, is not scripted. I have a basic idea of what I want to do. So for example, I just have a literal list of the playlist for this series. But I just have a purpose statement, the core idea, and why it matters. Everything else is going to be off the dome. I very much enjoy non-scripted content. I script when it's important, but generally speaking, I very much enjoy the free flow of conversation, and as I believe is hopefully obvious, I do have a certain mastery of the English language, of communication in general, and therefore I do not need to rely on a structured speech. That being said, there are times when it's useful, but today is not one of those days. So, let's get into it. If you are watching this series, there are one of two possibilities. You have no idea who I am, and you've seen this for whatever reason on a content platform, a recommended video, and curiosity got you to click. If that is you, hello! There are going to be more videos in this series that are going to help you understand who I am and what this is all about. This video will cover that a little bit. The last video, not so much. The first video, the part one, was accountability. Me holding myself to a standard that I'd set that I did not then follow through. And this video is to explain who I am and why that's changing. So, if you are the second category, if instead you know me in real life, IRL, and you clicked on this video because I posted it through my accountability challenge on all of my platforms, private and public, then hi. You do not need to listen to part one to understand part two. And if you're curious, you can go back to listen to it. You don't have to. It's going to be in a playlist if you want. That was me taking accountability and starting something that I had been delaying for a very long time. I'm going to be speaking to the people who know me. And if you are listening to this and you've just come across me, then welcome along for the ride. To most of you, I'm sure that you've come to know me as Alexander. Whether that's because it was the name I was given shortly after I was born and the name was changed, or Actually, I'm realizing I literally wrote a speech for Toastmasters that is essentially exactly what I'm saying right now. And I'm very tempted to pull it back, but at the same time, that would not be scripted. That would literally be my speech, but at the same time, it is kind of scripted. So I'm going to be showing you exactly who I am. The purpose of this playlist and series is not to overpolish, it's not to fuck around, it's not to try to make it so perfect that it never fails and then never gets released because perfection is the enemy of progress. Instead, I'm simply going to be raw. I'm going to do what I do best and yammer and blabber until I am done. So here goes. Many of you listening to this have likely come to know me as Alexander, and that is my legal name. But there's more to this story. My full name is Alexander Nicholas Roger Italo Foisy. And, well, actually, Alexander Nicholas Roger Italo. Italo. How would I say that Italian? Italo Foisy. Two of those are Quebecois, one of those is Italian, and two of those are essentially Anglophone. I'm French-Canadian, born in Quebec, raised and a little multicultural. I've got a little Anglophone et j'ai un petit peu de Québécois. J'ai été élevé dans un environnement particulier avec des circonstances très intéressantes, and due to the interesting circumstances of my birth and upbringing and adolescent life and now adult life, I've changed many times. And I'll be sharing a little bit about that today. If you know me as Alexander, you won't really understand why I go by Anrif. And if you know me as Anrif, you might be surprised to know that I go by Alexander. Right now, I'm in the process of merging those two identities. Essentially, I have been consolidating. When I was just born, in fact, no, I wasn't even born yet, my parents lived with my maternal grandfather, Italo, a not very kind man, raised in a family that did not have a lot of love, and it showed. He was very selfish and cruel. He was vindictive, punitive, and a very small, arrogant, cruel man who I believe was acting out of fear, as tends to be the case when there's an absence of love. He required that my pregnant mother name me after him, Italo. And if she were to refuse to make me his namesake, she would be kicked out, and maybe not disowned, but, a pregnant woman kicked out, end of winter, it's not fantastic. And due to a lifetime of harassment and cruelty on his part, my parents refused to give in, and so they promptly lost their place to live while they were expecting a child. My grandfather, my other grandfather, on the paternal side, Roger, he ended up taking them in, and I was born. They took care of my mother and me. But to make peace, in the family, I was given Italo's name as a third name. Now, you might be wondering, I'm getting lost in contemplation. And I do see the advantage of a scripted piece. Because also I'm getting emotional. It's not like I'm just talking about something that is inconsequential, and I'm also having to account in real time for how much information to share about people that are or are not about me. So I'll say it like this. My name is a story. I've spoken a lot with very little having actually been said, so I'll put it to this. My name is a story. I was born to the name of Nicholas, and very shortly after they realized I apparently didn't look like a Nicholas, so they changed it to Alexander. Upon threat from my grandfather, they refused to call me Italo as a first name, but eventually gave me his name as a sub-name. And to compensate, to balance it out, they also gave me the name of my other grandfather, Roger. As an acronym, these spell Anrif, Anrif. In English, a woman named Anne riffing a guitar, Anrif. Or, in French, or any language that rolls the R, essentially, which English does not, Anrif. Because the R comes from Roger. Roger. So, Anrif. It is a name that I've gone by for, at this point, a decade. If no, more than a decade. I remember I was in high school just scribbling this on a piece of paper over and over and over hundreds of times. And it became my identity. It became the usernames that I had on social platforms, game accounts, and it even became a nickname that I had with select individuals, mostly my friends. In time, the name began to reflect a different part of my identity, more playful and curious and social, whereas Alexander was very closed off, very emotionally guarded and restrained. And over the last, I want to say 7 to 9 years, I say this as a statement that will sound incredibly arrogant, and it's probably because it is, and yet it is also, from my perception, true. In the last 7 years' time, I have done more work on myself and quite literally have reshaped my identity multiple times. to the point where I genuinely believe I've done more work on myself in the last 7 to 9 years than most people have that I know in their entire lifetimes. In fact, I'll go and try and find something. I'm just going to put this on pause for a sec. Oh, also, I just unpause it very quickly. If you look above, you'll see that, like, just above the title, there's a little white box with a time and a date. That is a live screen capture of my computer, so you can actually see how long I've been paused, if ever you're curious. All right, I went into I have a big poster board full of, actually even on this side, this is very interesting. So here, I had a bunch of documents and papers and binders. I covered up some of the names for privacy reasons, but essentially these are 2 personality maps that I made of myself, and I believe there are more actually, but it's more just to show the process of how I structure and analyze myself. So this was my initial attempt at exploring who I was and explaining it. So from 1998 to 2019, different links, different colors. You can't really see this, but this is more bluish, then it goes purple, green, tech, Minecraft, gaming, isolation, trauma, mother, depression, antisocial personality disorder, and later I also realized autism spectrum disorder, socializing, school, 3 people who are related to various aspects of my growth, healing, therapy, spirituality, family, grandmother, paternal grandfather, father, and yeah. Then, version 1 from 2020 to, I don't know, I'd have to think about it. Essentially, this is the second version. Life direction, ? Gender, dropout, sexuality, self-awakening, psilocybin, empathy, emotions, MDMA, love, cannabis, comprehension and depth, substances, spirituality, paternal grandmother, death and transcension, enlightenment, money, new career path, ? Website, recording, projects. And these are just 2 examples of many. All that to say, all that to show, who I am is an evolving characteristic. Each name represents a part of my identity, and in the last 2 months I've been consolidating. I've literally been rebranding as Anrif in all my projects, all my systems, and very soon I'll also be doing this with family. My goal is as follows. I am going to be changing my name legally when I turn 50, so in 2048. The reason why 50 is because everything is very systematic. Everything in my life is planned and structured and developed. So, the first 25 years of my life, the first quarter of the first century of my life, was given to me by my parents, by my community, by my peers, by my support groups, by the education system, and I didn't really know who I was. Right now I'm 27, and I've had the first quarter to feel and be and live up to the identity that I was gifted. Now these next 25 years, from 26, let's call it 26 to 50, I'm going to be figuring out who I am in the absence and consideration of my past, of the name that I've inherited, of the meaning that it has, of the history behind it. And when I turn 50, I'm going to legally be changing my name. A very strong contender is Anrif, but I'm open to it being something else. And up until that point, I'm going to be essentially consolidating my identity as Anrif, which is why on social platforms and basically everywhere else, I am rebranding. And so if you are watching this and you've just gotten to know why this has been happening on all my accounts, this is why. It's a name that represents the name of my names. It is literally the purpose and the identity behind the essence of my character. And while I'm in a state of rebuilding myself and developing new characteristics, new traits, new hopes, new dreams, I am going to be developing myself in this way. And so if you were wondering why Anrif, that's why. And it is a pleasure to meet you. Anrif holds themselves to a very specific code. 99.98% alignment with integrity, as best defined by my current understanding of unconditional love. It is a pleasure to meet you. And it's a pleasure to meet myself. Also, just for personal context, I'm very warm right now. In the last 24 hours, the coldest it has been in my room is 26 degrees Celsius. And right now it's 29 and moving up. So if ever you see a little reflective sheen, that's why. This video is part of a playlist. It's going to have approximately 5 to 7 videos, depending on where I go with this. But my goal is to not make them super polished. It's literally just part of no longer avoiding my responsibilities. It's in acting in alignment with my core values and my principles. It's being true to myself and to my name. My goal is to understand. My goal is to accept. My goal is to live in accordance with my values and the identity that I'm crafting. And so, part 1, video 1, was my accountability. Video 2 is my name, the architecture of my identity. And in the next part, I'm going to be covering the 5 phases, the life system, and it not being a slogan. So, on that note, I'll be stopping this recording here. Thank you very much for listening if you have made it this far. I'm not going to tell you to like, I'm not going to tell you to subscribe, and I'm not going to tell you to comment down below. Not unless you really want to, because the algorithm is not your friend. The algorithm is not our friend. It is a tool, a commodity, and yet it is designed to capitalize on we are livestock. We are stock. We are stock of live purchase power. And we are controlled, not with a physical cage, but with debt. Not death, but debt, like D-E-B-T, debt, debit. Also, the English language needs an update. That's one of my projects, by the way. Oh, also, just if you're tuning in for this one and no other video, I have 100 projects. I have been spending the last 4.5 years with 5,800-ish hours, a little more now. I'm closing on 6,000 hours on this project. 17 journals, dozens of subjournals, programs, documents, templates, systems, daily accountability logs, formulas, thousands of pages, millions of words at this point. It is remarkable the quantity of absolute ridiculous. All of this in a single goal, all of this in a single objective, all of it to essentially redefine and reshape the flow of our species over a millennia. Coming in one of the next videos. Actually, let's see. The next video is going to be the 5 phases. Then the 4th video is projects and systems. Then the 5th is, as an employee of humanity. And then so on and so forth. So, I will get into that a little bit, but if you have made it this far, thank you very much for listening in. It has been a pleasure getting to finally start something and put thoughts to, not paper, but to binary? To code. Put paper to put thoughts to code. Thank you. And whoever and wherever you are, thank you for listening. Have a good day, evening, and or night.